more precisely an amphibian, because it was designed to be able to land on land as on carrier decks, as well as on water. And moreover, for shipborne use, it had to have folding wings. So this presented something of a modelling challenge which could combine all those features in one aircraft. The Walrus was designed by R.J. Mitchell, who is much better known as the designer of the Spitfire. But he was a very versatile man, and the Walrus flying boat was the culmination of many other flying boat designs he produced. And based on all those designs, it was very successful operationally. There's a story that the Walrus started out as a private venture by Supermarine, and an Air Ministry official came to visit the factory, and he was shown this prototype aircraft and half built. He looked at it and said, yes, very interesting, but we have no requirement for this sort of thing. The Walrus turned out to be very versatile because of these capabilities of going almost anywhere. It could even fly at high altitudes, although it was normally used at the lower levels as a fleet spotter to enable the fleet to look over the horizon. And it was also used as an air-sea rescue vessel where it could land on in the channel even in rough weather and pick up downed air crew. It is believed that it, as a type, over the period of the war years, it rescued something like 1,100 people from the sea. This in the days of long before helicopters and the limited available of high-speed launches to go out to a distance to recover people. The construction was alternative. This, bear in mind, was at a time of very rapid expansion of construction of aircraft in the latter half of the 1930s. And so the Supermarine builders, metalworkers, produced hulls in metal, whereas the same shape of hull could also be built by the local boat builders who were very expert in woodworking. So the two hulls were alternatives, although the wooden craft were used more often for training and the metal-hulled ones for seaboard operation. As a child, I was fascinated by seeing the seaplanes and flying boats landing at Lyon Solent Air Base, and the way they were operated up and down the slipway, which incidentally is still there. I was working away from home for a period of time and in a residential college. This gave me the spare time of evenings in which to consider starting the model, and I bought a plan from a remodeler of 1/8 scale, and this was very suitable for a model which should perform satisfactorily, certainly on the water, hopefully in flight, and also, of course, be not too big to for transport. The original was 45 feet long by 35 feet wide, so 1/8 scale brings it down to roughly the size corresponding to an Action Man doll. The model is of near enough standard construction, with using 1/32 plywood and thin balsa. I mentioned getting the plans from a remodeler. My first viewing of them was with a slight alarm at the overweight that seemed to be here, there and everywhere. And further, the plan was not dimensioned but merely drawn, and die-line prints are well known as going out of shape and size depending on damp and the weather, and so one had to make one's best of it and try to produce something which in the end simply looked right, even if you couldn't be quite be sure of the actual dimensions. The pilot plans showed ailerons driven by torque rods engaging out of both the wing and the side of the fuselage, and this looked very unsatisfactory. I therefore changed the arrangement to using servos built into the wing, lower wing, and with a direct coupling through the rearward strut to the upper aileron. And these pairs work very well, even with such small servos. The model plans just showed a rudder, which an air rudder, but also a passive water rudder. But I made this an active water rudder by putting in an additional steering channel so that it could be much more satisfactorily used on water, especially on confined ponds. One of the problems of this plan for me was that it showed a two-stroke motor which required to be a reverse rotation, because the Walrus has a pusher engine arrangement, and this adaptation would be quite beyond my technical capabilities. However, electric motors have now come along, and with the three-phase motor, the reversing is very simply a matter of interchanging two reeds. Further, the electric motor allows me to use the scale propellers, which were a pair, one behind the other, mounted on the same shaft, as contrasted with the single small propeller shown on the published plans. Now, the plans were not accompanied by any other information, nor have I found any description or technical write-up to show how well those plans would have worked. So I've no information on anybody producing a successful model for these plans. I mentioned that construction was started during my period of active working life, working away from home. So sundry bits and pieces were assembled and brought home over a period of years, and from then until an actual launching, in fact, took 30 years. This on account of the fact that some things I was dissatisfied with and built more than once or even twice till I got them right. The result is that it's now finished, and from a typical viewing distance for scale model work of 6 metre distance from the viewing judgment, it looks fairly well and quite authentic. I've only tried it on water so far, and this worked very nicely, but I had the use of only a rather small outdoor swimming pool, and I'd like to try sometime to find a larger area where I can have a speed run, see how she performs. It was a fairly small pool, so the photograph and video show it apparently almost stationary, but it was indeed moving under her own power and under complete remote control. This is absolutely standard model control systems with the built-in servo mechanisms as used in so many models. In the process of building was of enormous interest because of the many engineering challenges thrown up by the complexities of the model. I would certainly recommend it as a very worthwhile challenge to build.